It was an organization that we set up to help. The hospital didn't have very much funding, and we set this organization up to help supply sheets, towels, and different necessities that a patient would need, whatever. And we saw that this is a twin state, that's why it's called Twin City. And when some people came over from Oklahoma and they had a patient that was real sick, and they didn't know where the hospital was. It was there on Midland Boulevard. I think you have the number. And there, well, they brought to our attention, they said, well, we need a sign on the hospital so when people come in the city trying to find it, they won't have any trouble finding it. And so we decided we would put a neon sign up so it would be lighted up. So when the ambulances would come in, they wouldn't have any problem finding it. And that was really our biggest project that we did until the hospitals were integrated.
Do you remember what year that was that the sign went up?
I think that was around about 1943.
And the Rainbow Girls, how did you get your name, the Rainbow Girls?
My sister, she passed away now. She's on this picture of the Rainbow Girls. We said, well, we should have a name. And so she said, well, at this affair that we had after we purchased we had a janitorial service there. And she said, everybody looks so pretty. And she said, it reminded me of a rainbow. Said, all of the different colors. Your long dresses, she said. And so she said, what about the Rainbow Girls? And we all agreed.
And do you remember coming over here to Lincoln High School?
Oh, yes. I came to Lincoln High School. I went... I lived at 4612 High Street in Fort Smith, Arkansas. And Lincoln, of course, was on 9th and N Street. We had to walk from High Street down to Midland Boulevard to get on the bus. And we'd get on the bus, put our nickel in the front, then we'd have to walk to the back to get on the back. And if there were no seats, we had to stand up. So we decided that wasn't just wasn't gonna work. So we would take our nickels and we'd buy us a winding ball. Have you ever heard of a winding ball?
No. What is that?
That was a big candy that we would eat all the way from N Street down to High Street. There were stops there. One street's out there. It was stop 10, stop 9, stop 8. And then I'd love to work in the garden. My grandmother's name was Isabelle. So I'd go out and work in the garden with her. And we would raise tomatoes, squash, blueberries. Have you eaten blueberries?
Yes.
We had to pick blueberries every other day. And then up beside the well, now that's when it keeps you busy, picking the grass out of the strawberry.
Was that all for home, or did you sell some of that?
That was at home. My mother canned, and
But was there ever an NAACP chapter in Fort Smith?
Yes.
Was it active? Did people join
Yes,
it?
very.
Mm-hmm.
I belong to it.
Oh, good.
But now the colored teachers here could not belong to that organization.
Because
They
they couldn't.
and Mr. Green was a principal of here, principal of Lincoln School, and he made it clear to them that they could not participate with the NAACP if they held their jobs teaching.
because it would rile up
Right.
white people.
Mhm.
So they could have a high school in the community and they could teach, but they couldn't join an
NAACP.
organization.
And we had one, the home ec teacher, she was still there at that time. She was my home ec teacher too, Mrs. Minnie Cox. She worked with them, but she'd have to do it under the cover. So they would not know, because if it had, she'd have been fired from her job.
She would have lost her job and her income.
Uh-huh. And she has a son here now.
Were there other ways like that that the white community would make it clear that they wanted to keep the two communities separate? What other ways?
Oh, yes.
Well, sure, we'd go and wash dishes, cook, and clean up, and they eat the food. But then, if the bus had empty seats, we still had to stand
Well,
up.
we had to go in the back when we did start eating. And the jobs that I went on, I had to go to the back. That was my profession, was cooking. You go to the back door, you can go to the front. Of course, they were very nice to me, and I was one of the first ones that they let start coming through the front. And they would put emphasis on how the different hands that would look. Even where I worked, out here at Porter's Malt Shop.
Yeah.
It was one man sat there, and it was a lady working with me. She went to Lincoln School too. Her name was Fanny Garden. And one man sat there, and it hurt me so bad. He said, "I want Catherine to fix my sandwich." He said, "I don't want them black hands on my sandwich." And that just tore me to pieces. But I couldn't say anything. I had to have a job.
How did you handle that? Sometimes
These people here took it very good, our leaders. And we knew what was happening. And when we'd be in different organizations like the PTA, Mr. Ramsey was the over the school board at that time. The superintendent of all the schools. And when Mr. Ramsey, the instruments that we had were the ones came from Northside, and they told us that we could use those instruments, have them fixed up, and we could use them. And I was president of the PTA, and I spoke out. I said, "No." I said, "We will not fix the old instruments and use them." And said, "If we can't have new instruments, we don't want any. We'll try and buy some ourselves, and we'll do without the instruments until we can buy them, purchase them." And the next time I went to the PTA, Mr. Green said, "Miss Brown, come here." And I went back there in his office. He said, "You see what a little stinker do?" He said, "Look back there." And every one of those instruments was placed with beautiful, shiny gold instruments, and had the cases for them to go in red velvet. And I said, "Thank God." And had every one of them. And Mr. Rice was the music director. What was Mr. Rice's first name?
Owen Van Buren.
He was from Van Buren. He was our band instructor.
Willie Rice.
Willie Rice. And That made it. That cleared that right there.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't anything.
Mm-hmm.